Hi, friends. It's time to do a July wrap up. And I realized when I was going over my list of books that I read in July that I pretty much vlogged most of them, if not all of them. I think most of them. So I'll link below. I ended up doing two readathons that were hosted by friends of mine, and they're very fun readathons. One of them is Deck of TBR-a-thon. It goes all month. And then the other one is ketchupathon, which goes, I think this year it went from July 6th through July 20th. And that was um, hosted by Krista at Books and Jams, Amy at Amy's Bookish Life, and Destiny at Desi Reads. Deck of TBR-a-thon went all month, and it was hosted by Becca at Becca Books and Bujo and Chloe at Always Booked. So with the two readathons, I feel like I got a good bit read, um, and a number of them are from my shelves, which just makes me happy because I have a lot of books that I need to read or get rid of, or both. Like there's some in this pile that I will be unhauling that I read, either liked them and just know I won't ever reread them, or didn't like them. So first off, we're going to talk about a nonfiction that I did as a buddy read with my friend Andy. We had read last month The Queen of Sugar Hill by Rashonda Tate, which was a fictionalized account of Hattie McDaniel's life. Hattie McDaniel played Mammy in Gone with the Wind and was the first Black actress to win an Oscar. And we listened to we read the Rashonda Tate novel and then wanted to know like what parts of the story were true. But Andy and I wanted to know more. So we found a nonfiction that we wanted to read, and it was Hattie McDaniel, Black Ambition, White Hollywood by Jill Watts. I listened to the audiobook. I really liked it. It was a very good overview of kind of the racism in Hollywood that actors were experiencing at the time that Hattie McDaniel was kind of just a trailblazer in acting for Black actors. And the choices that Black actors had to make in order to work, number one, and um, what they did to try and get better roles for Black actors. I really liked that part of the story. It's a part of the history of Hollywood that we don't hear a lot about. Um, I thought that the author also did a really good job of showing some of the criticism that Hattie McDaniel experienced from the Black community as well. A lot of the roles that she played were domestic workers or caretakers, caregivers in white households. And some of the criticism she received was, we want to break those stereotypes. You need to take better roles. And the author really went into, she wasn't offered those roles, and those roles didn't exist for Black actors. And kind of the steps that Hattie McDaniel and some of her peers took to try and get better roles. And ultimately, they might have been in a movie, had better roles, had better scenes, and then that's cut from the movie because of something, the theater doesn't want to show the movie, or, some of the movies in the South or the movies that were shown in the South wouldn't be received well, so then theaters wouldn't show it, and all the things that were at play. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And like I said, side of Hollywood we don't really hear that much about. Um, it was really well researched and the structure worked really well. So I do recommend that. I gave it 4 stars. And like I said, I listened to the audiobook. It was really good. And then I started Deck of TBR-a-thon, and I started off with the DNF. I DNF Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. It just didn't work for me. I couldn't get really the writing style, and the structure of the book just wasn't that interesting to me. Um, yeah, and after coming off a couple of months of slow reading, I can't push myself through novels, which should we be pushing ourselves through novels? That's for another day, another time discussion. And then I did a buddy read with Melinda at Web of Stories, and we read Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen by Alison Weir. This is the third in the 6 Tudor Queen series. I listened to the audio. I've been listening to this series on audio, and I really like it. I liked this book. It was slow, but as Melinda and I were talking, it's kind of slow and a little bit boring because Jane Seymour probably was a bit boring in real life. And she follows Anne Boleyn, and Anne Boleyn was anything but boring. So I did like this and gave it 3 stars. I like the character of Jane and kind of what she stood for. But I also think that there were parts that just really didn't need to be expanded on as Weir did in this book. I mean, all of them are really chunky, and I don't know. I just didn't think this one needed to be this long. Uh, I don't know if there was a reason that all of them are kind of the same length, but they are. Jane Seymour ends up serving the first wife of Henry VIII as she's kind of losing favor with the king, and Anne Boleyn is already the king's mistress. She goes with the queen while the queen is in exile, and then ends up, for various reasons, coming back to court and serving Anne Boleyn. And it kind of goes into how Henry catches sight of her, how they start to um, build a relationship. And then kind of ultimately, I feel like Jane is used. I mean, she is. She's used as a pawn um, for various reasons by different people, her own family, Henry, some other people. And yeah, so ultimately, it was basically an okay book about, a person who probably didn't even want the infamy that she ended up getting because of who she married. So, like I said, audio is great for this series. This is 3-star. I think we're talking about reading the 4th book in maybe September, I think is what we're thinking about. So then my readathon started to overlap. Deck of TBR-a-thon was still going on, and then ketchupathon started, which is a readathon that you focus on reading book of the month books or whatever kind of books you want to catch up on. The first one I read for that was King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. I've really enjoyed S.A. Cosby's work in the past. And this was okay. I mean, it was kind of what I expected for S.A. Cosby. It was a little bit more violent than I thought it was going to be. Um, and yeah, it's about some siblings, um, a sister who is running the family crematorium, um, the oldest son who is like a financial planner type in Atlanta. And then there is the youngest son that is sort of helping at the crematorium, sort of trying to find his way or has lost his way. And they all come back together after their father is injured. And there's some suspicion about a number of things that have happened in their lives. And we find out why a lot of these things are happening. And we also are kind of presented with what happened to their mother. And so there's kind of two mysteries going on: what happened with the mom and what's going on now for them. So the violence was one of the things that I felt was a little bit more extreme than I'm used to. And that's saying a lot for Cosby, because usually I mean, there's a violent level to them. Um, and then I just didn't completely love the story, which is kind of unfortunate. I heard him speak about this, and it was a pretty strong story for him. And I think that's, when we talk about some of our favorite authors, there's going to be one or two that of their novels that you might not like. I know I talk about Alice Feeney, that I love her work. There's one that I do not like. So this is probably going to be the one that I dislike. I've read all of S.A. Cosby's work except for his first novel, Blacktop Wasteland. And I think so far, my favorite has been My Darkest Prayer. That was really good. A really good book. So yeah, 3 stars, kind of a disappointment for one of my most anticipated reads of the year, but that's okay. So then for these books, Ketchupathon and Deck of TBR-thon, I read The Last Story of Mina Lee by Nancy Ji-young Kim. This is a story about Margot. She is a Korean American 20-year-old, 20-something-year-old who has kind of a up and down relationship with her mom. Her mom is a Korean immigrant, and Margot goes to her apartment and finds her mother dead. That's all in the synopsis, not a spoiler. Um, Margot then kind of goes into looking through her mom's stuff and finds things that don't make sense to her in the apartment. So she goes kind of on a mission to learn more about her mom, and her dad. And we also get flashbacks to Mina Lee, her mom, when she immigrated to the US. And it's a great story about immigration, about legal status, and some of the obstacles and barriers that people experience. Um, Also, a great look at the relationship between immigrant parents and their American born children, and just mothers and daughters as well. That was a very strong theme in this book as well. Um, I did give this 4 stars. I really liked it. I listened to it on audio, and I highly recommend the audio. Then I also read The Beach Trap by Allie Brady. This is a story about two sisters who lose their dad and are left a beach house. And there's a lot of um, backstory to the sisters. They're half sisters. And also just current present day things that they're dealing with as they deal with this house. Um, I I liked it. I didn't love it, but I did sort of. I liked Allie Brady's writing. It's a duo, and I hope to look at their other work when I'm looking for something light, which I was in this case when I decided to read The Beach Trap as part of my deck of TBR-thon. I had just read or was reading some pretty heavy books like Mina Lee, um, and it was still talking about some heavy topics, but in a lighter way, and I really appreciated that. So I gave that one 3 stars. So the other heavy book I was reading for Ketchupathon and Deck of TBR-thon was Crying in H Mart by Michele Zauner. I've avoided this memoir for a long time because it is about a woman named Michele who ends up taking care of her mother. Her mother is sick with cancer, and um, just through that process, uh, Michele's mom is Korean, and some of that heritage Michele experienced when she was younger, her mom would take her to Korea. She still wanted to know more. And so they kind of go down some history of the family through cooking. And then after her mom passes away, Michele reconnects and deals with a lot of her grief through cooking some of the Korean meals that her mom taught her, or that just bring her joy. Um, it was a very heavy novel, did make me cry as someone who was their mother's caregiver. Um, so I highly recommend this. I did read it. I did not listen to the audiobook, so I don't know how that was, but um, I would recommend that you take this slowly if you deal with grief, and just take your time through it and not rush through it. 'Cause I feel like if I had rushed through it, it would have not had the same impact for me. But I could read some, take some time with it, read some again, take some time with it. So I gave this 4 stars. I felt sort of like some of the food talk was a little bit long and boring. Um, but overall, it's a great story about a mother and a daughter. So then I had another DNF. This was for Deck of TBR-thon. This is Throttled by Lauren Asher. This is an F1 romance. I wanted to try a motorsports related romance because I do like motorsports. However, this is not it for me. I kind of felt like uh, it was over explaining F1. I didn't really think all of the F1 information was accurate, and it was a bit cheesy. It was also interesting because after I DNF, I did go read some of the reviews, and based on the reviews, it sounds like this is Lauren Asher's first book. I could see that. I mean, I haven't read Lauren Asher's other work, so I don't know, but I could see this as a first novel. Um, but I don't know. Yeah, it just wasn't for me. So that'll go in the unhaul pile as well. And then I did end up ending the month on a high note. I did read a book that I gave 5 stars to, and that is Planet Earth is Blue by Nicole Panteliakos. And this is about an autistic girl who is in the foster care system, and she is obsessed with space. And she is anticipating the launch of the Challenger in the 80s. And she's hoping that her sister is going to come back, as she promised, to watch the Challenger launch with her. It really looks at how foster kids with disabilities deal with kind of the changes in routine and the different reactions to foster families have. I felt like it was really well represented in this book. It's a middle grade book. I do think it's kind of heavy for the younger middle grade. I would think, I don't know, maybe like 8th grade and above or something like that, because it does deal with some pretty heavy topics and grief as well. But I definitely recommend this one. It was 5 stars. And that was my reading month for July. I am already into August and have a couple of books on the go, which I'll tell you more about in an upcoming video. Work's been crazy because it's the start of the school year, and yeah, things just get busier when that happens. So I hope you all are taking really good care of yourself, and for those going back to school, I wish you luck in the coming school year. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.